The Toyota 1000 Desert Race returned to its Botswana roots for the second year in succession from July the 7th through to July the 9th. This year, the Toyota event, always a highlight of the South African off-road calendar, took on the role of second round of the South African Cross Country Rally Championship. An innovation this year saw the pre-race formalities and a ceremonial start based in a busy shopping mall in the centre of Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. It was a colourful scene with the citizens of Gaborone and competitors from all over South Africa entering into the spirit of the affair. For some of the locals, pre-race activity and some of the weird machinery was all a little strange. Proceedings got underway with a 20-kilometre prologue in a lion park outside Gaborone to determine race start positions.
The car's set up right, the car's a short car, it's not a long car, and on the tight stuff we get through a little bit quicker than the other blokes, and I'm just going to race it at my own pace.
Most competitors used the prologue as a vehicle shakedown rather than an all-out sprint. Former winner Api Reneker wasn't interested in heroics.
As jy op so 'n byeenkoms begin 'n fout te maak, dan jy baie standtyd en dit tel teen jou, en as jy aan mekaar kan ry en jy het nie foute gemaak by hele byeenkoms nie, dan behoort jy redelik vooruit te kom.
Apart from determining start positions, the prologue certainly served another useful purpose. Competitors quickly discovered that the Toyota 1000 Desert Race was going to offer up an awful lot of sand and thorns. While one or two were given a reminder that following the route sometimes presents problems, a few eyebrows were raised when Springbok Bux Carolyn came out of retirement to share a drive with brother Richard.
My boot needs me, so I decided we'll share the drive. And he's gonna drive one half to the refuel and I'll drive the other half.
For all the competitors, marking along the route was a major concern.
I think the organising seems good, so I hope the route will be safe. And normally, if it's well marked, it's normally safe. So I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can.
Then there were those for whom a weekend of racing in the Botswana bush came to a premature halt. By and large, the prologue was incident-free, but there were a couple of the expected frontrunners who ran into minor problems. One of those to find himself inconvenienced in such a fashion was Rob Walk.
At about the 12k mark, an oil pump belt came off. But I jumped out and managed to get that on fairly quickly. And only lost a minimum amount of time, I think about 2 or 3 minutes.
Pre-race favourite Alfie Cox on the Pro Action Castrol KTM also proved that even the top stars are not infallible. For the bikers and car crews alike, sand, more sand and thorns would be on the race menu over the next 2 days. But that was fine by Herman Sulwalt.
Ek hoop as dit maar dieselfde tipe wedren as waterspan as dit is meer vir ons tipe kar. Meer vinniger en meer sanderige wedren. En as dit so is, dan dink ek het ons 'n goeie kans.
On 1,000-kilometre marathon events like the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, a secret of success for both bikers and car crews is to pace yourself. The race is won more often than not in the last 100 kilometres.
Ek het die krag en spoed om vir die ander manne te wil voorry, nee, maar die bakkie weet ek is betroubaar en dit ek maar gaan opreken.
Wise words from an old hand at off-road racing. The route for day one took crews from the start in Gaborone to a refuel at Shoshong at around the halfway mark for racing section 1. From there it was on to the overnight stop at the Kama Rhino Reserve, not far from Serowe. The off-road racing fraternity has a strange affinity for pre-dawn starts to races. Winter or summer, the order of the day, especially where the cars are concerned, is an early beginning to proceedings. This entails final vehicle checks, minor adjustments and running repairs where necessary. It's at this time that the adrenaline starts to pump with everyone keen to get underway.
Not really my favourite position from the front. I like being a little further back, and especially on the first day of the 1,000-kilometre race. I'd like the guys in front to pathfind, and we're just going to let guys go in front after a while and pace ourselves. It's Saturday, tomorrow is most important to be in front then. But today I think it's not really an advantage to be in front. You've got to pathfind, you've got to find the way. So tomorrow's the big day.
Klaus Degener and Thilo van Westenhagen in the BP Raceco were the first to be flagged away by Toyota's Flip Wilkin at the ceremonial start. The AA Motorsport Off-Road Commission has high hopes of seeing the Desert Race included on the International Cross-Country Rally calendar in the future, with the ceremonial start part of these plans. On a chilly winter morning, most of the citizens of Gaborone were still warmly tucked up in bed. The hardy souls on hand at the start were mostly connected with the crew, with convoys of service crews and well-wishers set to crisscross Botswana over the next 2 days in pursuit of the cars and bikes. Two giants of South African motorsport, Paddy Driver and Frans Boshoff, were among the late withdrawals when specialist parts for their AAD Video Sport Range Rover did not arrive in time. But as always, there were interesting newcomers. Springbok Jeremy Davies has for years been a front-runner in the motorcycle category. After a serious accident last year, Davies now found himself behind the wheel of a Nissan Safari.
It's another ball game, you know. Only thing that's really the same is the route and the navigating. I'll be able to pick up that. But when it comes to driving a car, it's completely different. You mustn't think you can jump from one to the other.
Out on the route, crews were hard at work. It was going to be a long and hard day in tough terrain. Kasi Kutsi and Richard Leek in the Toyota Hilux 4x4 Turbo were chasing after the Silwald cousins, Herman and Karl Heinz, in the Raceco. As is always the case with the desert race, tight and slow parts of the route were interspersed with fast sections where it was flat-out motoring. Kasi Kutsi and Richard Leek are both successful ralliers with vast rally and off-road experience behind them. The pair were one of 3 Toyota dealer team entries, along with R.P. Reiniger and Lucas Dreyer in a Land Cruiser, and Richard Schilling and Jeff Bell in a turbocharged 2-wheel drive Toyota Hilux. Behind Kutsi and Leek, the first driving stint in the lubrication equipment Raceco fell to Richard Carolyn, with brother Books waiting to take over at the refuel. Defending champions John Lambert and Eric Scholz were motoring along steadily in the Digidor Porsche twin-seater. Also looking comfortable were reigning off-road champions R.P. Reiniger and Lucas Dreyer in the Toyota Land Cruiser. The big Rover V8 motor in Rob Walk's Super Pave Raceco was sounding healthy. With no navigator, Walk was reliant to a large extent on clear route markings, but was making good progress. There were also no early problems for Nick Harper and Richard Hill in the Rockwell Porsche Raceco. Five FM Sun City winners Frans Chepek Sr. and son Frans Jr. were also going along steadily in the V-Motors Raceco. Weird-looking and noisy machines flat out through vast expanses of semi-desert produced an enthusiastic reaction from the locals. Well, not all of them. The father and daughter combination of Niels and Carla Eriksson had moved into an early lead in Class B in the special vehicle category. The aging Chenoweth was still going strong, but not far behind the Erikssons were former saloon car ace John Rowe and Tony Ball, who's more often to be seen piloting a VW Golf in national championship rallies. For Ball, sitting in the navigator's seat on an off-road event was a new experience. There were early problems for former biker Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak in the time freight Zani. A huge dust cloud that could be seen from the air signaled that a race was in progress. The dust meant that progress was not always as rapid as crews would have liked. Cars milling around in circles searching for the correct route is also not unusual on off-road events. The lone Toyota Hilux parked forlornly at the start was that of Alfred van Vuren, who'd missed the start and decided to withdraw. The motorcycles were up next.
I haven't started in the front for quite a long time, so it will be nice for me. There's no dust. And there's no way I'm looking back. I'll be going flat out again for as long as it lasts. So it will be very exciting.
Willie, what happened?
For a sore Willie Ireland, the excitement didn't last long. After being first away, the always flamboyant Willie made contact with a tree trunk on the side of the road. The offending tree left Ireland bruised and battered and nursing a damaged knee. The SKF Delmas diesel Suzuki was also in no fit state to continue. With the hapless Ireland out of the race, Darrell Curtis moved into the lead on the Winston Yamaha. Curtis is a talented young rider, but there was danger behind him in the form of Springbok Alfie Cox on the Pro Action Castrol KTM. The diminutive Italian was carving his way through the field after a disappointing performance in the prologue.
I'm actually in the best position that anybody can be, and the dust is going to be a problem, I know. But if I can get past the guys, I've got my time made up, and they've got to now pull out and leave me to make up the time that I'll catch up.
Some great camera work from the helicopter by cameraman Etienne Snyman captured Curtis hard at work at high speed through the thorn trees. The 250 class off-road machines hit top speeds of around 180 kilometers an hour, and it takes both courage and skill to go blasting through the bush with disaster always only split seconds away. Back on four wheels, matters were hotting up with the Silwald cousins being chased by Kasi Coetzee and Richard Leek in the dealer team Toyota Hilux. With the refuel up ahead, Obert Carolyn was on their heels in the lubrication equipment raceco. It was a high-speed train with the dust making life difficult for those doing the chasing. With only one road and thorn trees everywhere else, overtaking is no easy matter, and Carolyn was forced to play a waiting game. John Lambert and Eric Scholz were also well placed with the short wheelbase Digidor at home on the tighter sections. R.P. Reiniger and Lucas Dreyer were maintaining a steady pace in the top 10 in the Land Cruiser, but were being reeled in by Rob Walk in the Superpave Raceco. Up at the refuel, activity was often frantic as pit crews rushed to get their charges back into battle. Just as in Formula One racing, off-road refuel stops can mean picking up or dropping a place or two. Some of the repair methods are also a little rough and ready.
Leave them. Leave it.
Woman drivers Sabila Quant and veteran Springbok navigator Pete Swanepoel were going well in a Paris-Dakar Mitsubishi Pajero. Minus the odd body panel or two, the Richard Schilling Jeff Bell Toyota Hilux was looking a bit worse for wear. Not far behind them were Cliff Barker and Mike Redden in the AAD Land Rover, who'd stormed through the field after problems in the prologue.
Very dusty, but tight, and then it's very fast. Tight and fast, and it's fun. It's been fun.
Okay, go.
The AAD Land Rover hit trouble in the prologue when a pulley belt broke. Time loss saw Barker and Redden start almost from the back of the field in 51st place, and they had no option but to charge from the word go. At the refuel, they were on the fringes of the top 10, with the ruggedly built AAD Land Rover now going like a train. The inside of an off-road race car is Spartan, to say the least. The ride is also not up to saloon car standards, but the main requisite is that off-road vehicles go like hell and don't fall apart. In the motorcycle category, no one was really surprised to see Alfie Cox out in front on the Pro Action Castrol KTM. Cox is in a class of his own in Southern African off-road racing and caught and passed Darrell Curtis before the refuel point. Having lost 5th gear on the Winston Yamaha, Curtis was doing his best to stay with Cox. Thick sand on the route between the Shoshong refuel and the overnight stop was also causing problems for the competitors. Not that the problems were confined only to the motorcyclists. Space frame off-road cars don't have the smallest of turning circles, and getting underway again can be a problem. Franz Czepek Sr. and son Franz Jr. were the victims here. It took a while, but the 5FM Sun City 400 winners eventually got underway again, with the Porsche motor in the V-Motors Raceco working overtime. Falling off your motorcycle is an occupational hazard for off-road racers. 200 class leader Graham McLaughlin was the victim here on the Lesotho Office Equipment Kawasaki. There was at least one pair of willing hands to help McLaughlin, holding down a place in the top 5 to get underway again. Not far behind McLaughlin and going like a bomb was Alan Julian on the Pro Honda. With more power from a 250 machine, Julian didn't have the same problems with the sand as McLaughlin on the smaller and lighter Kawasaki. Still out in front in Class B was the father and daughter combination of Niels and Carla Eriksson in the Chenoweth. With a shorter wheelbase than many of the newer generation space frame cars, the Chenoweth handled the tighter sections of the route better than most. Cliff Barker and Mike Redden were still moving through the field in the AAD Land Rover. At times, progress was not as quick as the pair would have liked, and it was tough going near the end of a long day. For motorcyclists, overtaking cars is often a major problem. Barker and Redden moved over to make way for a motorcyclist who flashed past them at high speed. The passing motorcyclist was Chris Dodd. The Winston Yamaha rider started the day in 8th position and was going along steadily. All looked to be going smoothly, but with the overnight stop almost in sight, Dodd had the misfortune to drop out of the race. With campsites starting to spring up around the overnight stop in the Kama Rhino Reserve outside Serowe, the lubrication equipment raceco, driven now by Books Carolyn, was first across the line. Carolyn was still going through finish line formalities when the Shell Superpave raceco, driven by Rob Walk, came steaming down the last stretch to the finish. Although he was second across the line, corrected time was to put Walk into a lead of around 6 minutes over the Carolyn car. It was a tremendous performance by Walk, who left the start in 15th place after a relatively slow time in the prologue the day before. While a tired but obviously happy Walk headed off to do some maintenance work on the raceco before taking a welcome shower, RP Reinicke and Lucas Dreyer were next up at the finish in the dealer Team Toyota Land Cruiser. Reinicke's no stranger to Botswana conditions after farming in the area for many years, and it was a typically workmanlike performance from the Springbok pair. As usual, there was a family welcoming committee for Reinicke and Dreyer, and while Reinicke's wife brought the crew up to date on who'd arrived at the finish line before them, the leading cars started to come in thick and fast. Next to appear were Nick Harper and Richard Hill in the Rockwell Porsche raceco. The pair also had an uneventful day and were well placed in the top 10. Matters had not gone so smoothly for Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Toyota Hilux. Shortly after the refuel, a differential problem saw the Hilux reduced to two-wheel drive, and that was a major disadvantage in the thick sand.
8 seconds late.
Okay, good luck. Thank you very much. Okay.
League looked cheerful enough, but the crew had lost valuable time. The Toyota didn't sound too healthy, and service crews had some work ahead of them. Corrected time put Rob Walk in the raceco ahead of the Carolyn car. Lambert and Scholz were followed by the Sulwalts with the first 4 cars special vehicles. A tremendous performance saw Barker and Redden in 5th place and leading the commercial vehicle class ahead of Reinicke and Dreyer. When the first of the motorcycles arrived at the overnight stop, no one was surprised to see it was Alfie Cox on the Pro Action Castrol KTM in the lead. A still fresh-looking Cox had made up 4 places, but more important, had opened up a sizable gap on the second-place rider. Second across the line.